Hello and welcome to my new segment, tentatively called The War Room. This is where I'll be discussing strategies for upcoming multiplayer games and going over some of my ideas and setting both short-term and long-term goals. So this is the current state of the my Russia campaign in Pop Demand Mod Divide by Zero, and some background, some things you might have missed if you happen to watch the videos but didn't necessarily get all the commentary. So since this is a multiplayer game, there are player trades between sessions. So that's actually how I ended up with this area of China that was bought for I think 500,000 pounds from the Chinese Empire, and I wanted it specifically for tactical reasons, just so I could have a much smaller border to defend with China. And probably won't be doing much else in China. If they decide to sell me this area, of course I'd be happy to buy it, but given that it's a player, that's very unlikely. So let's talk about the current state of the game. Who are the players? Well, right now France is the country to beat. Obviously there's the North German Federation as well, but being my ally and my neighbor, I don't really see them as much of a threat at the moment. So North German Federation is Abacus, who is relatively new to multiplayer. He's played, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 sessions. He's definitely never been in a major PvP war, so I don't see him as a threat at the moment. He needs practice at minimum. France, let's see, I believe that's John. I'm not 100% sure. Willie, I believe is his handle. And France clearly knows what he's doing, at least in the Victoria world. I'm not sure what his multiplayer experience is outside of this particular game, but he's certainly the nation to beat as it is at the moment. So AI Nation, UK obviously ranked number 1, so I'll be trying to take them down, but even though North German Federation is in a close second, I'll be able to pass them easily, I believe. So my military is just massive and easily mobilized, tons of units, so I'm not too worried about the military game. Sweden, another player, is in an interesting position. That is, he's right on the verge of being a great power. Not necessarily a useful ally, at least strategically. So he could go either way, and I'm not too concerned either way. As an ally, he can't help me much, but as an opponent, he can't really hurt me much either. So these 2 units here will basically block his entire army from doing anything useful, and I have a pretty massive navy, which no one else seems to have at the moment. Austria dropped. Austria would have been my natural ally in this game, I believe, but since he's not here, I'll probably be going for Galicia Lodomeri at some point. So in 38 days I'll have my CB and I can finally finish off Persia, so that'll be done. And I've already puppeted all of this area with the exception of the Sikh Empire, so I might go for the Sikhs next, and once my military tech is a little bit better, to deal with the English. As part of my agreement with China to buy this area, that treaty also involves a defensive alliance until 1885, I believe. So even if I wanted to, I can't really go after China without incurring a massive penalty for breaking that treaty, as stated on the forums. Now, I do like to hold up my end of the treaties in general, but if I'm just allied with someone, of course, then a backstab is not out of the question. Bart, who plays as the Ottoman Empire, is relatively new to the game. This is, let's see, I believe he played a little bit during my Austria campaign, but he's never been involved in a major PvP war. Oh, he was Spain in the last campaign. So he's gotten pretty decent at managing a large empire, but I don't see him as a threat or as a necessarily useful ally. So as far as my targets, obviously expanding into India, but I don't really want to wreck anyone's game per se. That is, I don't want to ruin nations and make people rage quit, so I won't be like releasing Finland or anything from Sweden or anything like that. But my sort of immediate goal is to wreck the United Kingdom, and I think I can probably do it. So with my navy, even though it's spread out all over the place, I've got tons of capital ships spread around, and they can be pulled back at any time. So I think with that I can very easily land a force in Ireland and at least raise their war exhaustion and get some sort of score to do something at least. I don't know if I'm going to take some land or just release Ireland, something like that. But anything to weaken the UK would be fantastic. Eventually I imagine this area will be revolting against the UK, and when that happens there's no stopping it in this particular mod. So let's see some other targets. Once the UK is out of the picture, it would be really funny if France are watching this right now, which is a possibility. But my plan is to actually ally, that is maintain my alliance with the North German Federation and help them take Alsace-Lorraine. So that will weaken France a little bit, and that will also give them reason to go back after Germany once it forms. So once Germany forms, I won't feel bad at all about taking some land from Germany. So I believe this is Ostpreußen. Be a nice little industrial area, I believe. A little bit of cash there. So it'll also give me some more easily defendable borders. So taking Ostpreußen and then, what is this, Westpreußen, taking those from North German Federation or Germany when that forms, I think it's a pretty logical thing to do. So my goal for the game is to become number one without causing anyone to rage quit, which is sort of a fine balancing act in a game like this. If you've ever played multiplayer, you know how easy it is just to get people on tilt, as the poker term goes. So without trying to completely wreck someone's game, but just handicap just slightly while increasing my own industrial base to the point where I can overtake the UK and France. And again, Germany I don't think is going to be too much of a problem since they have enemies on all sides. Alright, so I think that pretty well covers this game. I might also be expanding into Japan as long as they're not yet civilized. Not sure how close they are. So I won't be doing any sort of covert espionage in this campaign. I don't really see a need to, but of course that's a possibility and something I will be doing for the other campaign for reasons I'll explain in a moment. But I will probably try and take Edo just to get some nicer, easily defensible borders, and of course keep a small navy here in case Japan tries to invade across the islands. Colonialization is not really something I can do at this point, although I will point out there were a few pre-game sorts of things that were taken care of between sessions here, and that is you can see now my colonial power is 3. And what happened was I increased my colonial power to over 20, and then by going through on a state-by-state basis, I was able to check which of my colonies had over 1% bureaucrats to begin with. So anytime I saw over 1% bureaucrats, I immediately went and turned it into a state, and then got my colonial power back. So by doing this, I've actually increased my colonial power base substantially, and I'm starting to colonize this area. So I think once these two areas are colonized, then I can just annex this entire block outright, which will give me a substantial amount of area and resources. I'm not 100% sure if that's the way the decision works, but one way or another, I'll be taking this area. Kicking the British out of India I don't think will be too hard, but I think I will let the AI handle most of that. I might puppet the Sikh Empire. I might try and acquire this little area here. It's got some decent resources, but I'm definitely not going to be going for a full annexation, especially now that they're civilized. So I'm going to try and keep my infamy under control, although if it does hit 0, I will be going for a quick conquest against any targets of opportunity. So Romania is not in my sphere. I thought they were. Okay, I'm trying to sphere them, I guess. Very strange, I thought they were in my sphere. So Wallachia and Moldavia were in my sphere, but I guess when Romania formed it dropped out. So once I sphere Romania, I'll probably be releasing the rest of Romania from Austria-Hungary. Alternatively, I might release Hungary, just because Hungary, and that will give me a strong industrial ally. And I might be taking Glaciolodomeria for myself, since that's a nice 1 million pops and some decent resources. I believe some coal somewhere. Yeah, there we go. So a nice little expansion of the border. And since we don't have an Austria-Hungary at the moment, that might be a logical thing to do. On the other hand, there is a player who might be joining, and if he does join as Austria-Hungary, then I'll be leaving him alone. I want to avoid trying to make anyone rage quit if I can help it. Alright, so that's it for this particular campaign. Let's load up the World in Revolution. Alright, so this is the current state of my nation in Slazer's ranked game. I'm playing as Germany, and here I went ahead and made the edits from the previous section. That is, in exchange for allowing France to annex Picardy, or to capture or to acquire Picardy from Belgium, they ceded Gillen to me for free. That is 0 infamy. So Germany now controls all of Germany and Denmark and southern Sweden. So let's talk about how this is a little bit different from the PDM DBZ game. First off, the stakes are incredibly high. That is, every player ends up with a score per session based on their actual in-game score, which is shown here. So this score is divided by a modifier which is based on your nation, usually dependent on your starting rank of the nation, the sort of rank potential. That gives you a number which is then used to determine your actual rank in the game. So Germany, being an industrial powerhouse, has a very high modifier, so my total score, even though it's very high here, is actually not as high as some of these other nations, as it turns out. But let's talk about strategy. So in the game, there are a few things I need to do. And my number one issue right now is that my two greatest enemies are on both sides of me. So if you've been watching the game, you see I've been setting up my armies on both sides. I've got a pretty nice setup. I've got 4 infantry, a guard, 4 artillery, and some backup, along with some siege units. So what's going to happen here? Well, right now, this very moment, Russia is at war with Japan, and because I'm playing single player now, Japan actually annexed Manchukuo, I believe this is Manchuria. So this hasn't happened in the actual game. In fact, what happened in the actual game is Japan and Russia were at war, and Japan inconceivably surrendered. What they should have done is captured this area and then surrendered, and then they would have at least kept this area. But what they did instead was they surrendered without capturing this area, so they don't have this, and then Russia added a war goal against them. So the war goal that Russia added was to take Edo. I believe this is, no, Izo, excuse me. So Russia actually now owns Izo, this area. So Japan lost area in that war. They didn't get any of this, and they're now worse off than if they had never started. But what we noticed from this war is that Russia, number one, needs a lot of time to get units across the country, so I guess they don't have a very good rail system set up yet. But also, most of their military is composed of artillery, and actually that's what I found for France too. So I'm going to do a little bit of what you might consider cheating, but I'm just going to consider it espionage. So we're going to change tag to France. Let it run for a day, so we can see what's going on here. So what you notice is France has moved all of its units off the border with Germany, and that's so I can't see what their actual unit composition is. And the reason why they don't want to show me their unit composition is this. They have absolutely no infantry. In fact, they only have dragoons and artillery. There's absolutely nothing else. So they don't have any siege bonuses. They have a little bit of cavalry. They have no real reconnaissance. And they have a ton of artillery. But as you might know from this particular mod, World in Revolution, okay, they have 1 engineer for all of those units. So in this particular mod, with this version of it, artillery costs a fortune. You can see this 1 artillery unit costs 75 pounds per day, which means this stack alone costs 786. Now this is fine, except you notice that France has only 115,000 in the bank. So of course during war they need to spend 100% on land units, right? And they're probably also going to mobilize. They get 300 units from mobilizing. Let's watch what happens. They're now losing a ton of money per day. They've got taxes on max. Okay, tariffs aren't set. Let's set tariffs. So you can see now, with full sliders, everything's set to max. France is losing about 3,000 pounds per day. So very quickly that would run them into massive debt and cause them to go bankrupt. So that's really what I'm counting on in any war with France. You can see now with the mobilization. So basically France has no front line until they mobilize, which means anytime France goes to war, one of two things is going to happen. Either A, they're going to mobilize first and then set up their stacks and then invade, or if they get invaded first, there's a possibility to catch their entire army without any front line. So in a blitzkrieg situation, in a situation where the game is paused, war is declared, I can set my entire front line, which at this point has moved off the front line, but I could set my entire front line to invade 2 or 3 units into France, and in doing so, I would engage their unprepared stacks with no front lines and instantly win those battles. Well, not instantly, but after a couple days. So that would give me a new line right across this area. Maybe this province here would be a good one. So a front line that goes from right next door to Paris all the way down to the Alps. And in doing so, I'll be able to siege this entire line, back up to the line behind it, and have a very, very functional front from which to invade. Some other things you'll notice is that France doesn't have a very effective navy at the moment. And in fact, if you look, their whole navy at the moment is simply 3 cruisers. Now switching over to Russia, Russia has no navy. They've got a single man-of-war for all of Russia. So in the naval game, Germany is way ahead. Even though Germany's navy isn't the most effective navy, that is, units are not new, but there are a lot of units, and just simply taking a single ironclad or even a transport, moving it to these different provinces, in any war, that would give a fairly substantial blockade bonus, with France and Russia having absolutely no way to counteract that. So at least in the short run. I'm not sure why France decided to completely destroy their navy. That's a really odd choice. Alright, so let's talk a bit more strategy. So Germany has a number of allies right now, and one by treaty. Germany is allied with the United Kingdom via treaty on the forums, and this is a defensive alliance. So if either the UK or Germany has war declared on them, and a CB is added against either of us, the other will join in. It's obligated to join in. So basically what this means is if France declares war, especially for Alsace-Lorraine, UK will back me up. If Russia declares war on me, UK will back me up. If anyone declares war on UK, especially for Indian lands, I will back the UK up. So there are limits though. And the limits are, in this particular campaign, there are thresholds. And that is the same modifier that's used to determine your score is used to determine how many player countries can be on one side in a war before 1900. So 1900, that goes out the window, but for the next 8 years, UK, Germany, and Austria-Hungary can't be on the same side in a war because our modifiers add up to a number that's too high. Same goes with, say, France, Russia, and Persia could probably join in that, but let's say France, Russia, Persia, and Spain couldn't all be on the same side of a war. Not that they would necessarily want to, but they couldn't even if they wanted to. But after 1900, that goes out the window. Now, the main issue with this rule is it's really prevented the alliance centered around Germany and Austria-Hungary from expanding and being as effective as it might be. So in any war, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy can't be on the same side. At least I'm fairly certain that's true. Certainly all 3 of us plus Belgium can't be on the same side. Belgium, of course, rage quit, but when he was here, that was a major problem. Netherlands, if he comes back, he would not be able to join us for the next 8 years, because if he would, that would take us over the limit. But I'm fairly certain Italy can't join the 2 of us, so that sort of limits our options. But if we want, we can declare separate wars against separate targets. So for example, Germany and Austria-Hungary could declare war on Russia, and Italy, Belgium, UK, etc. can declare war on France. So that is allowed as long as they aren't in the wars together, which there are ways to sort of get around that. Alright, so what does this mean for me? It means I don't have to worry much about France, because France's only ally in this game, only strong ally, is Russia. And France is really good at pissing people off, burning bridges. So you might have guessed from some of the commentary from the other players, maybe they've just been stabbed in the back too many times. He is a sort of compulsive liar in this game. I take much of what he says with just a grain of salt, especially if he's promising me things. So he is the sort of player who will just instantly stab you in the back for no reason, but it's very obvious when he's going to do it. So I think most people have learned just to sort of avoid Struki, and as a result, he doesn't have any real allies in this game. So Slazer, who is playing Spain, you'll see is allied with France, and I'm guessing that's just for his own protection, probably because he knows that Struki would have no qualms about completely wrecking him just to take a single province, which I'm surprised he hasn't, to be honest. So France has an ally in Russia. I don't know Russia's story. I'm guessing that he and France are allied. And it looks like I accidentally gave myself this province during my edit, but this actually belongs to Russia. So Russia is a juggernaut and does have a massive army that they can mobilize. So let me switch back and forth. So Germany's potential right now is 281 soldiers plus 360. France has 200 plus 300. And Russia has 270. Let's see what this does. 270 plus almost 600. So Russia can mobilize a massive army, and unfortunately, I missed my opportunity to attack Russia a few sessions ago. So what I probably should have done is attack Russia when I had a CB to, I forget what it was, I think it was like destroy forts or something. But I should have attacked Russia to take this region of Poland, or maybe just release Poland, because in doing so I would have weakened them substantially, but unfortunately that ship has sailed. So Russia is way more powerful than I can deal with solo at this point. Now let's look at some other areas. So in Africa, the German areas are completely contained within the Austrian areas and the British areas. So I don't really have any enemies near me down here, and also I'm allied with Italy. So it looks like the allied nations have taken Italy quite nicely. I don't have any problems, nothing to worry about down there, only quashing some rebellions here and there. So obviously Europe is a tinderbox, but there's only one alliance that matters, and that is what France and Russia will decide to do together. In South America, Brazil is my ally, soon to be Svirling, and I'm hoping they become more powerful and be able to maintain their own borders. Right now they're being overrun, they got wrecked by Canada, but hopefully they'll be able to fix that. So I'm not looking to expand too much in this area. I hope Brazil takes Argentina, and I might be expanding to the south just to get a few more ports. But my economy is very, very weak at the moment, and especially due to this particular government. So the laissez-faire and free trade is just really killing me. At least I think this is free trade. So there is an election in progress, and after the 5th of July, because this is Her Majesty or His Majesty's government, well, I won't run through that. But after this election is finished, I will be able to change party. So I will be switching back to the Conservative Party. Actually, I might be switching to one of these others, but this might be a better one. Protectionism, limited citizenship. Laissez-faire isn't too critical because the tariffs are just abysmal. So what I need to do is get some taxes to 100%, then I can actually fund the military. As it is right now, I can't fund my military to 100%. So this is a massive problem, and that will last until the next election. So in the south, I will be looking to expand in this area, but only if I have some spare infamy. The main reason I wanted this province is so I would have a border with Brazil, so I would be able to influence them more effectively. Otherwise, UK, Netherlands, UK and France would have a bit of a bonus there. So I wanted to counteract that. What's next? USA is pretty well destroyed. secondary power being eaten by Canada, who is another player. Oh, actually, Canada was AFK or controlled by the AI last session, but I'm pretty sure Canada is a player. Same with Mexico. So they are in cahoots, and they are working to keep the United States from becoming any sort of power, although I think a competent player could probably turn that around for the USA. What else? Right, Sweden. This is an important issue. I have a CB right now against Argentina, I think. I'll double check that. Oh, I'm actually at war with Argentina, so the AI went ahead and declared war for me when I switched to France. But anyway, I have a CB against Argentina, and I will be using it to acquire this region here, so Araucania, just because I want a Pacific port, no other reason. And like I said, I'll be leaving this area for Brazil. And once I get that, then I should be very close to having justified my war goal against Sweden. So, what's the importance here? Well, Sweden is actually on friendly terms with Russia. You see the AI added them to the sphere, but that's not the case in the game. Sweden is just on friendly terms, and we are battling each other to get the most diplomatic points with Sweden. So what is my plan? Well, there are two possibilities. Either I can declare war on Sweden immediately, while all of Russia's units are way over here fighting Japan, and if Russia decides to intervene, I can move my entire line basically to about this point and siege, get a massive amount of war score, or maybe just defend this area and try and take that from Russia. If France decides to join in, since they haven't mobilized yet, I can blitzkrieg into France, capture Paris, impose whatever I want there. So I'm guessing Russia will not join. Instead, what I'm hoping to do is take this area, Norland. So if I take Norland, that basically means that Stockholm is isolated from all the rest of Sweden. So what's the importance there? Well, if I take Norland, and then I release Norway, Norway will now try to release the rest of Sweden. And if any rebels should ever arise, they could actually free Norway, which is already my puppet, and give me this additional land to my puppet. So with that, I would have only one additional province to capture to conquer all of Sweden, this area being their highest industrial region. That is, most of their industry is in the Stockholm region. So if I'm able to get this area for the low price of 10 infamy, then that would boost my industrial score a little bit. So I'm really hoping to do that. But before I can do that, I need to get Russia out of here. And to do that, I'm going to capture Norland and hope for a rebellion. Also, I won't load it up right now, but Sweden has, I believe, one ship. So if there is a rebellion, Sweden has no way to get around to combat the rebellion, unless they walk all the way through Russia, which I suppose is possible, but I don't think the AI is that smart. So, again, the goal of this particular ranked game is to come out on top. That is, your raw score divided by your modifier gives you a number, and your goal is to have the highest number. So there are some obvious targets that need to be taken care of. Germany has, I believe, the second or third highest modifier. So France is already pretty well destroyed. Their prestige is essentially 0. They're not a problem. My prestige plummeted like a rock too, and I was overcome by rebels and then was bankrupt out of the blue. So can't let that happen again. But my prestige can only go one way, and that's up. My industry is great. My military is sufficient, but of course there are nations that are a bit more of a threat, especially Russia and the UK. But the UK has its troops all over the place. So right now I'm allied with the UK, and I want to maintain that. That is at least until I'm able to overtake both Russia and France. So when I can take on both Russia and France, then I will feel secure in Europe, and then I can deal with other nations. But for the moment, at least, I need to maintain relations with everyone else here. Austria-Hungary, great ally. I don't really see any reason to break that alliance. I mean, Bohemia is juicy, but that is a core area for Austria, so they get more use out of it than I could. That would boost my score slightly, but it would weaken a potential enemy if I were to take that from him. So right now we're great friends. If I were to take that, he would become an enemy, a slightly weaker enemy, but then I'd have 3 enemies around me, so I don't want to do that. Same with Italy here. So Italy on its own is not that powerful. It can mobilize a lot of units. Let me see exactly how many. Okay, I guess they're already mobilized for some reason. Let's demobilize. The AI always goes to war with everyone around them the second you start this game. Alright, so they can mobilize 252. That's a ton of units. So basically me, Germany and Italy, we can take on France no problem. And if that were to happen, then it would just be me versus Russia. So there's potential for shifting alliances, but there's really no need to right now. Same with the Ottomans. I'm allied with the Ottomans. They're kind of doing their own thing. I don't really have a need to interact with them. I don't really want to backstab Austria-Hungary. There's no need to. That would just be counterproductive in every way, so I'm not going to. But if I were to do that, then obviously I want Italy and Ottomans on my side to go at them from all 3 directions, so not going to happen. But if I were to do that, that's how it would be done. Okay, I guess the last thing is the wild card, and the wild card is Slazer, because Slazer, obviously a competent player, currently ranked 9th, so right on the verge of being a great power, but he could go either way. So if Slazer were to ally with France and Russia, that would make it a little bit more difficult, not because of his military, but just because that's a lot of mobilized units that he can just throw into battle anywhere. So being on the back, not on the front line, he would have free reign to move his units around, move his high attack or defense generals into whatever battles are needed, and not have to maintain a line. So that makes him a potentially dangerous adversary, and I believe he's also got a decent navy. Yeah, it looks like 84 ships in the Navy, but they're spread around all over the place. Now, with Spain as an ally, if Spain is a reliable member of the alliance, that is UK, Germany, Austria, Hungary, Italy, Ottomans, and Spain, that means that France has absolutely no chance, and then it's the world versus Russia. So I'm hoping that's the way it goes, but of course that could go either way. It's likely Struki would promise him things, in which case, he might decide to go with France just on the off chance that France might award him with something. This is the kind of thing Struki likes to do a lot. He likes to make deals where if you will let him screw someone else over, like if I were to let France screw over Italy, then he would give me something in return, and we saw that here with Jylland. So it's just the fact that he signed that treaty that was the only reason I actually went through with it. But that's the sort of thing he likes to do. If it weren't for the fact that Belgium rage quit, I wouldn't have done that. But I got something out of it. France got something out of it, so it worked out okay. But this is the sort of dealing that he likes to do, and the reason why Slazer could go either way. So since this is a ranked game, and it's not a coalition game, Slazer's goal is to get his score as high as possible, which means if he has to screw some people over to do it, then that's just the way it goes. Now, if France is the one who facilitates that, which he likes to do that sort of thing, then he could go France's way, and that's certainly conceivable. On the other hand, if he decides to maintain the alliance against Struki, right now he's allied with both, I'm fairly certain. Let's see, right now he is allied with both Germany and France and the UK. So basically he's allied with everyone here, and at any moment he could change his alliance and backstab whoever he feels like. So he is the wild card here, and he is potentially more dangerous than France for that reason. But my big problems right now, things to watch out for, obviously Russia. I will be continuing into Sweden, so we'll see how that goes. I am hoping to blitzkrieg Sweden and conquer it before Russia can possibly get troops over to this area, just in case Russia does decide to invade me. I will otherwise be fairly cautious, minimalist expansions, but I do have an agenda, and that agenda is to become the most powerful nation in continental Europe, so we'll see where that takes me. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any comments, questions, or recommendations. Be glad to hear it. Thank you.